Oh man, do I really have to talk about this? What the heck? Welcome to the superpilotish channel. My name's Graham Wilson, and today in my basement, I'm going to be telling you all about the elephant in the room, what they really won't tell you, diversity hiring in aviation. Is it happening? In short, no, don't worry about it, and I'll tell you why. So here we go. I've been looking at on the Twitters and in social media and stuff like that these days. Everybody's talking about diversity hiring and blah 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 blah. And when it comes to aviation, it's like social media, just like regular media, always gets it all wrong about aviation. So I will be the expert, and I'll tell you what I see and what I hear with my ear to the ground, and in the aviation industry with regards to hiring. Okay, so I heard just the other day that here in Canada, Air Canada is looking to hire 400 pilots this year. That is a lot for the country the size of Canada. And so, where do those pilots come from? And how long does it take to become a pilot? Like it takes a while, and it's not easy, and costs you a lot of money usually. So it's like it's not you can't just like instantly poof, you're a pilot. Take the weekend truck driver course and you're a truck driver. It's no, you got to do years of like some places you can do it faster than others, but generally you're looking at a few years of training to become a pilot. And by the time you get to be the captain of an airliner, which I will show with my great whiteboard over here pretty soon, once you get to be captain, you're pretty qualified. So here we go. I'm going to go through. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I don't like people being afraid of flying. So that's why I don't talk about airplane crash. Whoa, like all the other YouTube channels. I'm way more boring. I'm way more boring, and my viewership kind of shows that. So, but oh hey, Nanya, and hello, Wrench. So yeah, so here we go. This is what it takes for you to fly an airplane. And I got my list of pilot qualifications, what you got to do. So there's different levels of licensing in the aviation industry. And probably the top of the top, the hardest to get is to be I am licensed and I'm qualified to go fly a big airliner jet. I'm the captain. Okay, so that takes a while. And I'll show you everything that they got to do along the way. And like I said, it's not easy and it's not cheap. So let's just say you want to fly a plane and you want to fly it solo by yourself. Everybody has to do their very first solo flight by themselves. And it's very memorable and it's always a great time. Some people are more nervous about it than others. But I mean, every pilot will always remember the very first solo. So to get to that point, okay, I got my 3 different categories here. Training, if you have to do a written test for it, which will test your knowledge, and a flight test. So a flight test would be you're with a government appointed FAA, Transport Canada, whatever the governing body is. There's someone set there that's very experienced, and they can decide, yes, this person's safe to fly under these conditions. So solo, okay, yep. So you're going to do some training here first with your flight instructor. And there actually is, okay, I'm talking about Canada here. It's generally about the same in every country. So written test, yep, you got to do a little written test. It's not too hard, but it makes sure that you know the very, very, very basics of being able to go flying around, take off, fly around, and land. That's all you got to know at your own airport. So there's solo. Now the next thing you have to do is get to your private pilot's license. We'll call that the PPL. So private pilot's license. That allows you to go, you rent a plane, you go flying around with your buddies during the daytime, and it's good weather. Okay, so you're going to have to do some training for that. Okay, you'll have to do a written test for that. And you'll have to do a flight test. And I used to conduct those flight tests on behalf of Transport Canada a little while ago. And I was the guy saying, "Yep, you're good," or "Ooh, sorry, man, not today." That was always tough. But you kind of rationalize that as the examiner saying, "Well, I don't want this guy to go flying with his family and hurt somebody." So there we go. There's that. Now in Canada, we also have what they call a night rating. They don't have this in the United States, But to be able to fly at night, you have to do some more training for that. And so there we go. You still are not working as a pilot or anything. So that the minimum amount of hours to get your private pilot license in Canada is 45 hours of flying time and 40 hours of ground school training too. And that gives you the knowledge to get your written test. Night training, that's kind of fun. You just go flying around at night and you get exposed to it, and then it's not too bad. That's also in good weather. Now, let's just say I want to fly around. I want to fly an airplane with 2 engines instead of 1. So that is called a multi-engine rating. Okay. So that's kind of a fun one to get because you just have to do some training, and you don't have to do a written test for that, but you do a flight test with somebody. So, yep. Okay. And while you're doing for that, you're basically training how to handle the airplane if you have one engine that failed. Can you still operate with one engine and get back to the airport and land, and emergencies associated with that? And so, yeah, so that's kind of a fun one. You just go flying around. You don't have to study for a written test. That sucks. You got to really jam that stuff in your head. Okay, but now we're going to fly an airplane with more than one engine. See, this is getting levels and levels of harder and harder, more and more training. So we're going to multi-engine, and we're going to fly what they call IFR, which is under Instrument Flight Rules. Okay, so that means now you can fly without reference to the ground. You can be in the middle of a cloud and still safely fly your airplane. So that's why, you got your big jets, you're coming in to land, and yeah, you can pop through some cloud there, no sweat, and you're trained for it. And you can read all those funny little gauges and instruments that are on the instrument panel in the plane. No problem, you got it. So to do that, that's a little trickier. Yeah, so you got to do some training for that. And you have to do a written test for that. So now you're learning all the new rules that you got to abide by. Talking to different air traffic controllers, it's kind of a whole different world that you're going into. And you also got to do a flight test, which I thought for me, that was the hardest one for me to do an IFR test. There's also, okay, now you got all that stuff. Okay, now let's do it for a living here. We're going to get our commercial pilot's license. Okay, and just because you have a commercial pilot's license doesn't mean that you can fly a jet. So everyone gets that mixed up. They say that like commercial aviation is airliner flying. It's not. Commercial aviation is, okay, you're getting paid to fly. So I am a commercial pilot, and if I teach someone how to fly, I'm getting paid. I'm a commercial pilot, but I'm not an airline pilot, but I'm a commercial pilot. Or even the guys that are getting paid to dump skydivers out of an airplane, like, or they're crop dusting or something like that. They're getting paid to fly. They need that. So for the commercial, you still got to do a whole bunch of training. By the time you're getting this license, you have about 200 hours under your belt, and you think, oh, big deal. I can fly 8 hours a day. That's 40 hours in a week. And then I do that for 5 weeks. I got 200 hours. I'm all good to go. Nope. You cannot do that because you're not learning anything after a couple hours in the air anyways. You're all overloaded. It takes time for all this stuff to sink in, and you got to study a lot too for your written test, which that was a tricky one too, and a flight test with an examiner too. I used to do that for commercial pilots too. So and at this level, it bumps up your skill level, because once you're getting paid to take passengers, then things get a little tighter. So like you're going to have to know a lot more ground school and studying for theory of bigger airplanes and stuff like that. Your flight test, you have to be performing at a higher hands-on level. The tolerances that you're allowed for, say, altitude or airspeed or angle of bank, that tightens up on you. And you're tested on more emergencies. And so it's like you do have to do a lot, quite a bit more training once you're going to be doing that. So now you got that, and you say, okay, now I'll see if I can apply to be a co-pilot. And this is where a lot of people are right now. They get their commercial license. They're still very good. By the time you get 250 hours, you can write this other test. So we'll say if you want the minimum to be a co-pilot is okay, you will have to get a little bit more hours. You got to get, so there'll be a little bit more training time. You'll have to do a written test, but no flight test for that one because you're already licensed to be a commercial pilot. You're licensed to fly people around, but you're not licensed to be the big cheese on a big jet. So you can fly around, and you got 250 hours. And there's a lot of people sitting in the right seat of the airplanes now with 250 hours. That when you first show up, and that's the one thing that kind of scares people. Like, whoa, they're pretty young. They don't know what they're doing. But usually to get to that point, you've spent a lot of money and time and effort to get to that point, and hours and hours and hours of studying, and you're dedicated to doing this. You want to do it. So you can't just throw someone in the right seat and expect them to do anything. Like they've already written 5 tests and they've done 4 flight tests by that point. So and that's another thing they also have to do. In addition to that, now they have to get checked out on that specific type of airplane. So there's more training, and that's called the type rating on that type of airplane. So, and usually if it's like a big one, you got to get a type rating. So type rating, and that's usually sometime in the simulator. So that would be some training time. You usually have some sort of a written test so that there is a record of, yep, they learned this ground school stuff. Yep. And the flight test will be done by an authorized check pilot. So there we go. So now you got 250 hours. You've done some more training, and you've got another flight test under your belt, basically your check ride for that. So, and you're still under the tutelage of, a senior pilot. Okay. And so we'll say once you're going to be the big cheese captain, so you have your airline transport pilot license, or ATPL, or APL as some people call it. Now you're going to be the big cheese, the capitano, captain. Captain. I never really spelled captain too much. Is that right? I don't know. I guess so. Captain, it looks weird. Okay, so to get that, now you need 1,500 hours minimum to get that, and that's a whole lot of flying. For you could be flying, working from the time you get up to the time you go to bed, maximum amount of hours for like a year or two, something like that. For 1,500 hours, that's quite a bit to get that. So let's see, you got to do some more training, 1,500 hours minimum. And you got to do, in Canada, you have to do 2 written tests. I'm not sure what it is in the States. I know I think in England, they got to do like 6 tests over there, but they're kind of smaller. But all those airline transport tests, they all kind of test the same thing. It's either broken up into 2 or 4 or 6 or something, but they're all studying the same thing. And now you're learning all about air, when the wing is going transonic and all this other stuff, and mountain waves and all this like big jet stuff, and E-tops and all kinds of weird things. And is there a flight test for that? No, actually there's not. You just have to do a couple of written tests, which are tricky to study for. I did that. Never got the license because I just didn't feel like doing it, but I did pass them. And no flight test, and then you get it all signed up. So there we go. By the time you are the captain, okay, you've done all this training here, and you've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 written tests, which I've done all those, and I've done a couple extra ones too to become a flight instructor. I didn't even talk about that. And I also got a float rating too, so there's more training. But so you did 7 knowledge tests and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flight tests. And if you're going to be a flight instructor, there's more for that too. So, there we go. So that shows me that's a whole lot of training, a whole lot of, and so when people are talking about, there was a diversity hire, that's why they crashed. It's like, no, the way that it works right now, by the time you get all this stuff, you're just hired. Like right now in North America and Canada anyways, If you have your qualifications, you're hired. That's it. It's like they don't care. Like they need you so bad that it's just like go. Okay, we can't pick and choose. Okay, the biggest problem they have is like and even for hiring instructors and stuff like that too. There's just everyone's getting scooped up by the airlines because the all the baby boomers are all retiring, and it's uh like if you you got the qualifications, you're in. Basically, someone was telling me that they're hiring directly out of flight colleges now at Air Canada, which 20 years ago was like forget about it. And they used to discriminate on the base of age years ago too. It's like they wouldn't take you if you're over 30. Like forget it, they want you in there for life. Now they got airline pilots that are, I've heard there's a few guys at Air Canada anyways that are over 65 and they're still flying. You can't fly internationally if you're over that age. Is it 60 or 65 for the mandatory retirement? But you can still fly within Canada as long as you got the qualification still. And there's people doing that. Some old guys just staying in Canada, 70 years old, still like doing it. High seniority, get the best routes, pick the best co-pilots, and stuff like that. So yeah, like it's if you can manage to get all those qualifications, you're in. That's it. So there's no such thing really as diversity hiring as far as I see it. It's just whoever wants it, they work for it and they get it. There you go. So it's not like I guess most people don't really know that like aviation, that's all the stuff you got to do. It's not like, hey, uh, I'm getting hired to answer the phones at a company or something like that. It's like, okay, now anyone can do that if they can, answer a phone. But yeah, you got to do more than just answer a phone to be a pilot. So yeah, so yeah, if you want it, you work hard, you're in. Done. There's no discrimination. The only problem is they can't find enough people. So they have to discriminate on which routes get cut, which airplanes are we going to ground because we got no pilots for these things. That's the discrimination that's going on. They're discriminating against Dash 8s and 777s. So, anyways, that's my take on diversity hiring. So, and it's touchy, and because and I don't like talking about my four things that I don't talk about on this show, but that's politics, religion, skin pigmentation, and genitalia. Don't talk about them. So I don't know. I guess I kind of skipped that today. So success on my part. Keep it friendly. Okay, because we're all pilots. So, anyways, or pilot fans or fans of the show. So, okay, what do we got here? Yeah, here we go. This is something that Ranch was saying. He saw a program where United Airlines is funding a huge programs that are only taking DEI pilots. I'm not sure. Really, I'm not that familiar with that, so I can't really talk too much about it. But the thing is, they still, I guess maybe the difference of the discrimination or whatever that to become a pilot is that it costs so much money to do it. So, I mean, if somebody wants to fund whoever wants to do it for whatever reasons, if that person gets an angel investor to like just pay for your flight training and stuff like that, well, I would have liked to have like lots of money thrown at me for getting all my licenses and stuff. And the thing is, that's where it's basically life is just not fair. It's some people are born rich and they got all the money and they have all these opportunities, and some poor people are born poor and they don't. Like let's see, if you were born in Afghanistan, you're going to be able to be an airline pilot? Probably not. It's bad luck. If you're born somewhere, your dad's a billionaire. Elon Musk's kids, they're probably going to do all right, but they're just lucky, and that's life. So, yeah, there's that. What do we got here? Da, 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 da. Yeah, what do we got here? Okay, Wrench is bringing up the old IQ question. It helps. There's all this debate about IQ, right? Is it? I don't really. That's not really against any of my rules about IQ. So IQ is a test, okay, and some people put a lot of weight on it that it's worth something. Other people say, oh, it's useless. But there are correlations between IQ tests and stuff. But you got to think about who's taking an IQ test too. Are they working really hard to do it? Like I think anytime I've done any type of IQ test, I do about 5 questions and I just say, I can't be bothered with this, and I give up. So what? My IQ is 0? Probably not. Like maybe there's some kind of like I don't know work ethic motivation component of it too. So but generally, wishy-washy kind of thing. IQ is a thing. I mean, like some people are like really great at physics, and some people have a tough time tying their shoes. So it's like, we're all have different capabilities, but most people are right in the middle. And I think if you work hard enough as a pilot, you don't necessarily have to have an above average IQ, but it would just be more work for you, or it might take you a couple extra hours. But I mean, I'd say the biggest factor, like I was asking at for me to get into my college program, there was this entrance exam that we had to write, and they've since gotten rid of it. But I was asking the chief flight instructor at the time, was there any correlation between how well people did on the entrance exam, which was sort of an IQ test? It was sort of a how much do you know math? How much do you know about general aviation knowledge? And I was like, is there any correlation between that and people completing the program? And he said there was really no correlation between like this is what is effectively an IQ test or like an SAT kind of thing, and the completion of the program. There was really no correlation there because what the biggest factor there was, were you showing up to class? Were you taking your flying seriously? Were you doing your homework? That's the biggest thing. So I would say anyone around the average IQ is probably okay. If you're mentally challenged and you have a tough time driving a car, you probably can't you probably can't fly an airplane. Well, that's life. So here we go. Uh, do, do, do. Okay, what do we got here? All right. Yeah, okay. Wrench said it, not me. So you're really saying that diversity hiring isn't about taking unqualified people, but they definitely discriminate on who they pay training for. Yes, and you're allowed to, if I want to give somebody money, I can give them money. It's just that's the way it goes. But yeah, and they meet the qualifications, and they're all good. So it's a matter of, I'd say it's just kind of more of a financial thing. And I also think, I don't know, it's just kind of like a little theory I have in my head about why there's a little bit more, or like there's less people going into aviation. It's because it's so expensive. And it's kind of like I've seen it my entire life. Okay. Like I'm over 50 and I've seen it my entire life where people's amount of disposable income has been going down and down and down and down and down for my entire life. So, I mean, that's, somebody would be able to, 40 years ago, there's all kinds of general aviation here in Windsor. Everybody had great jobs working at like the car plants and making huge bucks and buying new cars and learning how to fly and taking their family on trips and vacations down to Florida for spring break. And you just can't do that now unless you start racking up a whole ton of debt. And, you just not, people aren't, they don't have that disposable income around. And usually the first thing to go when the economy slides down, or just like we're slowly our purchasing power. Like you look at the inflation, the way it's been, like everything got really expensive all of a sudden. Meat doubled in price in the last 5 years. So, but people's wages didn't double in the last 5 years. So your purchasing power is going less and less. So there's less extra money to get into aviation, and aviation is expensive. So that's one of the first things to get cut. Same with like having a boat or something like that. Things get tight. Okay, sell the boat. Things get tight. Sell the motorcycle. Things get tight. We're not taking a vacation this year. So that's part of it too. It's what's the solution? I don't know. But do the best you can. That's all you can really do. So, okay, that is about it. Okay. But that being said, too, it's always been hard to become a pilot, and usually in the old days, there's so many people wanted to do it that it was hard to get a job, and a lot of people got commercial licenses and they just couldn't get a job. So they're living up in the middle of the bush somewhere. But oh, hey, Dustin, thanks for coming by here. Oh, Dustin's in here. I gotta go. Forget it, man. I'm not talking to this guy. So, just kidding. Okay, yeah, that's about it for today. And save your pennies and work really hard, and you too can become a pilot. There we go. How about that for a happy ending? Okay, and trust your captain and co-pilot up in the front there, man. They want to stay alive just like you. So, and they're qualified. I have no problem going in a plane as a passenger with those guys. Okay, or girls or whoever. And that's about it. So today is Friday, and I will be back on Monday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. We'll just kind of shut her down. And thank you for watching. Bye.